One game left in our first round sweat of the NFL best ball playoffs. Can we hold on to our teams that are advancing? Can we maybe sneak a couple teams through that aren't advancing? So we're going to find out tonight. Maybe let out a little tilt, enjoy the sweat, and have a little fun here on Monday Night Best Ball on Spike Week.
1, liftoff.
The chat is on fire already. Shout out Uncle Andy. I feel like this is one of the greatest summations of exactly how we're all feeling right now. I'm so excited. But I'm so scared. That's how I feel. That's how I felt since Thursday. I think we're all experiencing the roller coaster that is particularly week 15. All of best ball and each of these 3 weeks of the playoffs are very much chaos and a roller coaster. But my goodness, I don't know how you guys feel. Week 15 in particular, wow. Certainly was not the best week for me, but we're hanging on, chip in a chair. It's not over. Like I said, not my best week. We'll get into some things that I'm looking forward to in tonight's game. It's one of those, like I'm sure you guys are feeling. I have some teams that need some big games out of guys tonight. It's actually more so Seattle for me than Philly, particularly DK Metcalf and Jackson Smith and Jigba. What a surprise that it is JSN for me. But I'm needing those guys on some teams. And I have designated kind of some teams that I really want to get through. And they so happen to be on those teams. So I'm in particular kind of rooting for Seattle tonight. I am rooting against most of Philly. So we'll see how that's never fun. That's never a fun sweat. But like Uncle Andy said, it's this weird balancing act of I have teams that can get through with good games from DK Metcalf and JSN, one or the other, whatever, right? I need good games from those two. We're waiting word on Gino. I have no idea what's happening with Gino. Light of Truth says, I'm already sweating if Gino's playing or not. I agree. I have a team or two that would require a big Gino game and a big Metcalf game and maybe even also a big JSN game. But I have teams that are like a little bit further down with the Seattle stack that could come back, but Gino needs to play. And so I'm not getting my hopes up. I'm really not worrying about those until if we get to halftime and Seattle's having a big game, then I'll start to look. But it is this week 15 is such a funny, emotional, the psychology of the whole experience of week 15 is just crazy because you're both rooting for yourself and against yourself. Like at all times you have teams with certain players. So perfect examples. Let's take Sam Laporta from Saturday. Sam Laporta was not my highest owned tight end in all of best ball, but he was in my top few. He was my highest owned advancing tight end, both sites. And so he has a big game. That's great. That's awesome. But you also then you're looking at other teams that you were probably excited about. Say have George Kittle, or maybe you snuck a Travis Kelce team in, right? Or TJ Hawkinson or whatever. You have these other teams with these guys. God forbid you had Bills tight ends, right? Dalton Kincaid, something like that. And you're like, well, dead now. Got to root for the Laporta teams because these other teams that I was excited about are down 30 from a tight end already. And we haven't even got to Sunday. So you're constantly doing this balancing act, and it is absolutely brutal. The chat is letting us know. Updog, love stars, everybody. Gino's playing. He's active. Be Kurt. Shout out Bernie. Gino is officially starting. So that's fun. I do think that's also just good for the game, good for us watching. If we're going to sweat this game, like, my God, I don't want to sweat Drew Lock, even against a Philly pass defense. So we got Gino in there. Shout out to Gino for toughing it out. Go through some comments. Olaf, Bills fan. Sup, dudes, go Bills. He says, what a performance from the Bills in such a peculiar way that I still haven't wrapped my head around, to absolutely curb stomp the Dallas Cowboys, completing 7 passes. Josh Allen completed 7 passes. It was basically all James. The whole thing was James Cook. All of it. He did everything for the Bills in the defense, of course, but from a fantasy perspective, all James Cook. We'll get to more of that maybe a little bit later, and certainly tomorrow, talking about James Cook and what does that mean for the next round, because spoiler alert, James Cook gets the LA Chargers in week 16. So something we'll have to be monitoring for sure. If he scores another, I mean, I suspect he'll have a good game, but I would be shocked, if he has another game. Why somebody always have to call me when I'm doing the show? Every single time. Always has to happen. So light of truth for my best ball bags. I'm hoping tonight's game is low scoring. This is the other funny thing. Been hanging out in the Discord a good amount today, which of course, if you are not in the Spike Week Discord, it is 100% free. If you're in there, you've heard this several hundred times. 100% free. It's where all the sickos are hanging out, sweating their best ball teams. We're talking through the things that we need. We're enjoying the game. We're tilting the game, right? And there's a link in the description that you can get into the Discord. Like I said, 100% free. So come join us. And Light of Truth is one that is not so interested in this game. Well, interested in tonight's game, but not so interested in scoring. Whereas the rest of us, I think, are rooting for a few different things to happen tonight to maybe get an extra team through, or like you need somebody to hold somebody off, right? That's another thing that I have. I don't think it will matter, but one of my DK Millie teams getting through has Metcalf left, and there's a team or two that could technically chase me down. I think it would be a long shot. I think I'm pretty strong to get through, but I do also have like DK Metcalf on one of them to play some defense, which is always nice. Oh, awesome. Wonderful. Bernie letting us know now, Schefter. What the hell? Shefty is supposed to be we got all these buffoons out there on fantasy or NFL reporting Twitter. We don't need Shefty giving us fake news now, right? Rap Sheet does it enough. Jay Glazer, these other guys might miss. And Jay Glazer, that was harsh. He doesn't really miss. But you know what I mean. There's other, God forbid, the aggregators like Dove and such. We don't need Shefty screwing us over. So we're still hoping, like CJ, Gino's going to be here to save the JSN teams. If you been a member the Spike Week Sicko community over the last 6 months, you're probably also invested in JSN. He was my highest owned player on DraftKings, not my highest owned player on Underdog, and I might get completely wiped out on Underdog. My guess, so we can just start this way. I can give my State of the Union because it's not very pretty. I can give my State of the Union. We can hear how you guys are doing. But one thing I heard from a lot of people, and we talked a lot about today in the Discord, was, the best ball regular season is so fun. You're sweating your advance rates, right? You're trying to get through as many teams as possible. We all want to get through the whole silly debate about advance rates versus whatever. But the actual answer is that we're all just rooting to get as many teams through to the playoffs as possible. That's the whole thing. And then you get here. You get to this week 15. And this is what we spent so many hours, not even just drafting teams, but thinking about this stuff, consuming content, talking to other people, whatever. And then, like Josh says, you get in Best Ball Mania, especially, it's 1 out of 16 teams this week, also next week, which we'll leave that one to tomorrow. 1 out of 16 teams get through. You can have a monster advance rate, right? You advance. Corain and I talked about this last week on Legendary Sickos. Make sure you go check that out. So I thought it was a really fun conversation, catching up with Pat on all things kind of this best ball season and what we're looking forward to in the fantasy playoffs. But so let's say you get 32 teams through, right? Just because that's super duper easy math. If you run normal to expectation, you're going to get 2 of those, just 2 through, and that's just into week 16. Then you get to week 16, you got 2 teams, you are a massive underdog to even get one of those through, just from straight math. Of course, you may have a team that's like super duper strong and it should project better. It should have a higher expected value. You might have a team that's super, super weak and it has a lower expected value. But it brings you back to reality. And it's really a swift kick in the what's when we get to this week, because you're dealing with those emotions of like, okay, after this week, I'm hoping to just have a couple of teams that I can root on, despite drafting hundreds of them over the course of the summer. I drafted hundreds of teams, and I'm hoping to have 5, 6. I'm probably running a little bit below expectation. So I'll take a step back. I think I'm running a little bit below expectation on this playoff week. As you guys know, tons of Kyron. He was a smash. Kyron was my highest home player, across all of the fantasy playoffs, and he was a smash. But 25% Tyreek, right? Like 25% Olave, bunch of Keenan, one James Cook team, which is probably not going to get through. It's got a chance, but probably not going to get through, right? One James Cook team, so CMC. Like I have my fair share or whatever of handful of CMC teams, but it's not like I'm overweight. He's a first rounder. And so like, what do you do? Like there's nothing you do. You just flip over the cards and, this team doesn't have CMC, doesn't have Sam Laporta, doesn't have James Cook. RIP. Like, doesn't like it almost, it's not that it doesn't matter, because of course it does. You could somehow salvage, but you really got to hit the nuts if you don't have those handful of different guys in week 15, because it is so hard, because other people are going to have them. 1 out of 16 in best ball, maybe even 1 out of 12, in the DraftKings, on almost every DraftKings tournament is 1 out of 12 this week. And it's like, feel like for me, I had a below average advance rate. So I kind of, knew it was a tight needle to thread if I was going to still get a decent amount of teams through into week 16, because I just didn't have quite as many bullets as, some other people that had better advance rates. But I did feel that the teams that I did get through, because of having a couple of those big hits, AKA, Kyron Williams types, the Dolphins, heavy on the Dolphins, that kind of stuff, would help. But it's just hard. Like I have some teams, like I said, that'll get through, and I have some teams that were really, really good that are probably not going to get through. And I think that is something that's really difficult to deal with. DJ brings up like the randomness of week 15, right? Ty Chandler has been largely a zero. He had one like usable week during the regular season, and then pops up for nearly a 30-point DK game. And it's like somebody else happened to have Ty Chandler, even though he didn't do anything, right? Zamir White does absolutely nothing all year. If you happen to have him, you're feeling absolutely amazing. If you don't have him, you're like, I just ran so bad. How do I run into Ty Chandler teams? And that's just all part of it. As Light of Truth says, pod luck, right? Did you run into a team on DraftKings that scored 220 points? Because RIP, it doesn't matter how good your team is. Did you happen to get in some lucky pods where you could win with, 160 or something, which is actually a little bit what I did. You get a little lucky. It's tough. What can we do? But it just drives me back to what I do love about, like, it sounds negative, but I don't mean it in a negative way. I think this is ultimately what makes this game so fun. I know it sounds brutal because we're kind of talking it through from a negative angle, because the human element of it is negative. We're stressing, we're feeling like we got unlucky or whatever. But the fact that there is some of that variance and there is that luck is inherently actually where, like, the folks watching this, the folks hanging out in the Spike Week Discord, the true sickos, the people that are taking this very seriously, this is where the edge lies. Understanding, this is something I'll probably say too much, new catchphrase, right? But the whole game is setting up ourselves over the course of however many drafts we're doing. You're doing 10 drafts, 50 drafts, 100 drafts, 1,000 drafts. Over the course of that, how do I set forth my strategy to, on each of those teams, allow myself to, if I get lucky, win this whole tournament, right? You may not get lucky. I may get wiped out. Like, I'm pretty sure I'm going to get at least a handful of teams through, but like it's very easy to just get completely wiped out in week 15. I talked to some people, some text groups or whatever, even outside of our Discord, and there were folks in the Discord too that are just like, I think there was somebody. Sorry, not sourcing you. Maybe you don't want me to even cite your name, but advanced something like 55 DraftKings Millie teams out of 150. 55 out of 150. That's insane. That's an absolutely absurd advance rate. And it's hoping to get one team, is sweating tonight's game to get one team through into week 16. Imagine that. But that's like, it's not that hard for that to happen. You know what I mean? Expectation would be more like 4 or so, 4.5 teams to get through. But just because your expectation is 4.5, it's very easy to get wiped out and run under expectation to that. And it's just absolutely brutal. Joe has a DK team that scored 220 points this week and lost and is not going to be moving on to week 16. Think about that. It's just absolutely crazy. But again, all that is like the part that really sucks when you experience it. But that is also, in a weird way, the parts that suck, the parts that are miserable to go through that variance and to go through that bad luck. The opposite of that also exists. If you are getting unlucky, or we know lots of people are going to run bad, get unlucky, and end on the negative side of, the bad side of variance, there are people also on the opposite side. And so we know that going in. So how do we then, with the fact that we know that going in, set ourselves up and say, when I get on that good side, how do I ship this whole baby? How do I win $1 million like Felix did? How do I win $2 million like Pat Corain did, right? How do I win this Best Ball Mania tournament? And that's the whole goal. A lot of the other stuff is fun to talk through. All the micro stuff is crazy, crazy important. We're constantly trying to find micro edges, analyze every player, every situation, every team, right? All that stuff, and make the best decisions that we can. But at the end of the day, it all boils back down to that. If I run hot, I don't want to run hot and get 30th. You know what I mean? When I run hot, and trust me, I'm not going to turn down 30th, but it won't, right? I want to have my shot at shipping the whole thing when I run hot. Shout out B. Kurt. He's heading out, but I agree with his sentiment, hoping the best ball gods shine bright on everyone's teams tonight. Yeah, me too. I don't know what's going on with you. What is happening? The game starts in an hour. 1 hour, the game starts. And we don't know, we actually don't know. How do we not know? Who doesn't? What's happening? I'm really trying to understand this. I am going to send something here real quick. All right. Let's see here. Yeah, this is funny. This is a great summary of Love Star says, Gino won't start because I run very badly in every moment when it matters. Isn't that how we all feel? When it's happening, you forget the times that you did run hot. This is me, with DFS and all that stuff. You forget the times when you such a sun run, right? You get that late pick 6 for a defense that boosts you up in DFS or whatever. You forget that real quick. But when so-and-so gets hurt, right? Sam Howell gets benched and Jacoby Brissett. We should talk about that in a minute. When Sam Howell gets benched in the fourth quarter and Jacoby Brissett comes in and was not that far away from leading them to a comeback. Absolutely amazing. So since Rob can't make it, brought ourselves a special guest in.
What's going on?
Perfect time to bring in, while we're sweating these teams, someone who has gone through this sweat and successfully navigated it a couple of years ago, of course. Felix Tony Castro here to join us, former DK Best Ball Millie winner. How are you feeling heading into this game? What do you need tonight, and how's week 15 going so far?
So I have a 20% advance rate through this week 15, but that only happens when you only have 8 teams, No, it's been going pretty good. I just need Lockett not to put up 40. so and I'll get one.
Anything. You have any Metcalf, Eagles?
I got.
JSN,
I mean, everything. I've locked up everything that I can lock up. I need Swift to do well tonight, Swift and JSN. But if that's really all I need.
I'm very against you on Swift.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to cry. Honestly, I don't even know if Swift would hurt me in any other league. So, like in all reality, I just kind of want things to just kind of be slow paced.
That's the other thing is, like, on one hand, you're like, I would love to get, like, you go through your teams. I'm sure everybody has done this. If you're watching this, you're a disgusting degenerate like we are, and you've gone through your teams, and you're like, I need. Right. Okay. I'm using this was me earlier. I'm using 6.2 from George Pickens. So I'm down by 8, right? You do the math and you're like, I need this much from DK Metcalf to catch up to the guy in first, but he has DeAndre Swift -9 or whatever, right? You start doing all that math. And so of course you do that. You start to build out your sweat. But then on the other hand, you're like, I know I might get that team through, but do I really want like total chaos? Like I have some of those teams I'm feeling like I don't want that team that's in 10th in my pod, right? That gets the Hurts, AJB, Metcalf or whatever, because I didn't scroll down that far. I didn't look at every goddamn team. You know what I mean? I'm comfortable with the handful of teams I'm getting through. Like, let's just enjoy that. We want to get extra teams, but I'm trying not to be too greedy because it's been bad enough, and I've seen it be even worse for other people. So I don't want to get too greedy.
Exactly. I had one put up 192 points. That's like, it's not going to get through because like certain variables that happen throughout the weekend. I'm like, Jesus Christ. Like, but at the same time, like I have some of those players on the other team. So I'm like, is it really that bad? So. Right.
So you had a little bit of a tougher year in terms of advance rate on all sites on DraftKings. What was your
my big bet was on Christian Watson and Najee, because they were going right next to each other. So I was trying to make that similar bet that I made the year I won it with Chris Godwin and Cooper Kupp being like this, like league winners. And clearly when Christian Watson misses the first 3 games and Najee sucking ass, say it lightly.
Yes.
It kind of kills me.
Is there anything in particular though, say that you might have on some teams that are still alive that you're like excited about?
Yeah. I mean, I have Christian Watson on. See, the thing is about like advancing any of these guys is that if I get any of my players through, I'm excited about it. So I have like a Christian Watson. Actually, it's a Jalen Warren team. A Christian Watson, Jalen Warren team, and like
look at you. It came to the right side. You came to the right side.
It's got like all these people that I wanted, like the game matchups for week 17. So I'm like, if I can get that team through week 17, my whole idea was like, I want to build pretty much like one lineup, like an optimal lineup for week 17, and just build it like as close as I can together. So if I can get one of my lineups through, I'll feel happy with it if it's the way it turns out.
Yeah, that it's funny you say that because that's how I've been feeling too. With me in particular, like having a lower advance rate, a lot of the guys I took big stands on, were mostly it was mostly whiffs.
Yeah.
Obviously it made it known. Rashad Penny, who is active tonight, shout out Rashad Penny. We might get 2 carries for 6 yards or something. That's what B. Kurt said. Rashad Penny is
a notification
active.
From DraftKings told me he was out.
Let me check. No, out. Okay. Either I misread it. Sorry, Bernie. I apologize. But he is out again. So anyway, nonetheless.
Yeah, I just wanted
the moral of the story is still the same. Yeah, because I have like so many Rashad Penny teams. If he were to like luck box, a fourth quarter touchdown, we might be celebrating. But right, Rashad Penny whiff, Damian Harris whiff.
I tailed your Damian Harris. I had like 20% of him. Like, oh damn it! Like,
he's one.
He would have been smashed if he would have stayed healthy.
I feel fine. I feel fine about it. It's easy to be like, of course, I wish I didn't have him,
right.
But I don't feel bad about that one. I feel much worse about. Say,
I probably would have gotten more Khalil Herbert, which would have,
like what's the difference? Honestly, most of the running backs in particular in that range were quite terrible. Like that was the range that we all loved the running backs, and they kind of all sucked. I'd have to go back through and look.
Like if you would have hit David A-Chain there instead of them, like that's the only like winner in that area.
And like even A-Chain, like he had a few big weeks that was really helpful for a lot of teams, but he hasn't done shit in a while. I needed him this week, and he didn't do anything this week.
Same.
But like you said, I do think this is. I try to talk through, some of the BS that is. We're all feeling these emotions, right? We're all freaking humans. We all make mistakes over the course of the summer. Sometimes we draft bad teams. Sometimes we have a bad season.
But even if you have a good season, you're still week 15 is like the end all be all. Like your pod luck is everybody's gonna have to deal with it. I went from 80 to 13 the year I won. It's like you're gonna lose a lot. Like it's just gonna be who.
Think about that. The guy who had one of the greatest advance rates like in the history of a best ball tournament, which was you 2 years ago on DraftKings with what was how many teams did you advance out of 150?
Out of the Millie Maker, I had 75 out of 100.
So a 50%. Every other team he drafted advanced to the playoffs. That is unheard of, right? Absolutely unheard of. And then once you got there, by the time we finished this week tonight, 4 hours from now, you had 13 teams left. It's like, Jesus. And 13's a lot, right? Like if we all could get 13 through, we'd be very happy.
Right?
But still, now think about that. You had 13 teams in week 16. It's 1 out of 12 advance. Mm-hmm. You were basically, if now you had stronger teams generally than the average person did based on, the players that you drafted. But still, if we ignore that for a second, let's just say you're probably going to get 1 or 2 teams into week 17. So I've been thinking a lot like what you mentioned with the Christian Watson's a really good one, by the way. Yeah. But those kinds of players where, look, are they alive and are they still playing? I know Christian Watson's hurt, but he could still come back, right?
He's alive,
He's not out for the season.
Dude, that week 17 matchup is looking good for me.
I know. But that's the point is when you go through your teams, you get an advancing team through.
And Gabe Davis.
Oh, please, God, Gabe.
The ultimate best ball guy.
Yes, I know. We just need it. Dude, the 2 zeros in a row are not ideal. But all it takes is the one, right? But that's the point.
It's a wild card team, by the way.
We feel good about the guys who have been performing being on our teams, but it is often James Cook, right? Or Jordan Addison or someone like that drops 30 something. And you're like, I wasn't like excited, right? I got a Jordan Addison team through. No one in their right mind scrolled through and was like, oh, yes, thank God Jordan Addison's on here. Like Jefferson's coming back. Like, and if anything, I felt terrible about the fact that Addison was on there. But you just don't know so long as they're out there and it's not Rashad Penny, it's not when they're not hurt. It's okay. And if you can sneak teams through, the team I'm most excited about on DraftKings, which we'll probably talk a little bit more about tomorrow, is a team that did not have Laporta. It does have CMC Kyron. Basically, if I advance a team, it has Kyron Williams on it. That's the only goddamn thing I got right for the whole season. But so it has CMC and it has Kyron. Other than that, didn't have Laporta, doesn't have Amon-Ra, doesn't have some of these other guys that really smashed, or doesn't have Addison. I got a little lucky in my pod, but has Metcalf tonight, has JSN tonight, I'm not excited about this, but has Jahan Dotson. And it's am I excited about Jahan Dotson? Absolutely not. Was I excited about Jordan Addison last week? Absolutely not. Can he catch a long touchdown? Terry McLaurin just scored 30, right, this week. Anything can happen as so long as you have those guys. And the guys who haven't performed when you scroll down your rosters you don't know which one, but if you're going to keep moving on, the difference makers are the guys who have not yet smashed, right? Everybody's going to have Sam Laporta, so much Christian McCaffrey. And if it's not Christian McCaffrey, it's probably Amon-Ra, right? And so if you have Justin Jefferson or whatever, or you were able to sneak Tyreek through, those are the things that's look, okay, maybe I got wiped out more than I wanted, but I got some things to be hopeful about.
Yeah. Mine has Brian Robinson, which I'm excited about. If they go back to this run game, where he catches a bunch of dump offs, that would be nice.
Which, by the way, I need it again on this one team. I'm rooting for it because it's the team that I've been most excited about. And my best ball mania teams are terrible, but it's my for sure my best team. It's a Lamar team. It's Lamar Pickett. And of course, Mason Rudolph is freaking starting this week. But nonetheless, it's Lamar. It does have Laporta, but it's loaded. Everybody's healthy. It's totally loaded, and it needs Metcalf / JSN tonight to have. And again, like I said, no Swift to get through. But like I've been tilting more than HN, more than like Chuba. They got down to the 1 and he didn't score. All that like that stuff sucks. But I've been tilting Antonio Gibson because Brian Robinson is out. They're losing by 100, and he played less. He played less than he normally plays.
And then
like,
when they use him, they run him up the gut. Like, are we dumb? Like Erik Bieniemy. Like, come on, man.
And then thank God that we they ran 3.5 minutes or whatever off the clock. I don't know if you watched that game.
Yeah, I did. Well, I watched the Red Sox.
They got down to the 1 again, right?
So
they're down 14. They get down. McLaurin almost scores, catches his second long one, but he's down at the 1. They get down there with almost, it was like 4:47. We'll call it 5 minutes.
Yeah.
They had 5 minutes left. They finally scored on a 4th down play with like a minute and a half left.
Yeah.
First and goal from the 1, and they ran off 4,
They did 3 plays and then got lucky with the pass interference. Yeah. And then it was another 3 plays. I was like, it was absolutely insane. Yeah.
It was great for Curtis Samuel owners for sure, because he got his second touchdown. Ended up over 20 DraftKings points. So that was huge for him. It was tilting as a Sam Howell / Antonio Gibson person for sure. And Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson. I was big on that. That definitely sucked. But what are you looking forward to? The thing I love talking to people about is some, you mentioned Christian Watson, who's another good example, but some guys that if people, maybe that you drafted or didn't draft, doesn't really matter. Like, all right, we get through tonight. We got some teams. Who are some guys you're like, I would love to see this guy on a team moving forward that maybe hasn't been right. CMC is like an easy, everybody wants to have CMC, but everybody's going to have CMC. So who do I get through that I'm excited about?
I mean, as we've already talked about it a few times, but Christian Watson is definitely high on my list. And like the way you attack Dallas was through the run game. And so like having Gabe Davis is nice having him. I would say, Rachaad White is nice having him, but he's going to be owned by everybody and their mom now.
He's been such a great pick, especially on DraftKings. He's been such a great pick with the pass catching.
Yeah. I have Drake London on a couple teams with Desmond Ritter stacks.
He's a good one. I have London on almost every advancing team because I drafted him a lot. I drafted him a lot. And it's funny because the Falcons are such a good one. I had a lot of I was overweight Bijan during draft season, but not like crazily, but I just happened to get a lot of Bijan through. Apparently those are just my better teams or something. So him he scored less than 2 points this week, which really, really sucks. So I'm not going to get any. I think there was a good comment in here that somebody needed Bijan to score. Just literally, absolutely. Yeah. Love stars needed 2 points from Bijan to advance the team. He scored like 1.7.
If you would have had Najee, there you go.
Yeah, exactly. So you should have just drafted Najee on that team. But the Falcons are one where it's like obviously so easy to be frustrated by Arthur Smith and be tilted, right? Who the hell knows what's going to happen in a Falcons game sometimes, right? Desmond Ritter has 2 300-yard passing games this year. He has 2 30-point fantasy games. Drake London has a couple of monster games and then disappears from time to time, right? Kyle Pitts, I don't even want to talk about Kyle Pitts, but Bijan, is a little bit all over the place and seemed to be surging here down the stretch, and then he lays an egg. So the Falcons feel awful. Like, you don't feel comfortable. But, like, those are still really good football players. Their schedule's fine here down the stretch. Like, I'm happy. Like, those are the guys I'm happy to have. I'll sing a different tune after the game's over, probably on Sunday. But like heading into it, if nobody else has those guys, I feel like Drake London just scored 30-something fantasy points last week.
Yeah.
I want the guys that can do that, but no one else has them.
Yeah, I drafted all upside, and so that's another reason why my season long struggled. It was just like pure upside, which I faded Tyreek Hill, so I can't say that completely, but like. I drafted a lot of upside like type players like Gabe and Jahan Dotson and Drake London and DJ Moore. And so like I had a decent season, but it could have been a lot a lot better, and they've done it evenly through the season.
Yeah. Trust me, I totally feel that.
I think drafting Cooper Kupp in the first round, like the whole like drafting earlier in the offseason, I think those people are going to be at a more disadvantage of maybe potentially this year than previous years, because the Cooper Kupp news like right at the very end of the season, man, they got
game changer.
Yeah,
my best team. It's 100%. It's so funny, and year to year, like you said, it's so different. Actually, each of the last 2 seasons, my best teams have all been like May teams, like not even just like somewhat early, like within the first week or whatever, were like some of my best teams. 2 years ago when you won,
that's wild.
my best team. If you remember, I'm sure you remember, Cooper Kupp early 2 years ago was like my very first draft, which was my best. I didn't make week 17, but my best ball mania team was a Ram stack with Cooper Kupp in the 6th round, and it was like just loaded. Just absolutely loaded. I happened to hit right. Sometimes you just get the right combination of all these guys that skyrocket up by the end of the summer. Cooper Kupp's going like late 3rd round, and like you get this huge advantage with some of those early drafts. This year, and then sometimes you get injuries, right? J.K. Dobbins goes down. Maybe you get, now that was a bad example because Gus also went down. But like, right, Cam Akers goes down. You get Darrell Henderson. Those kind of situations. This year, we didn't really have the offseason injuries. Tim Patrick was the only one, but even then, who the hell wants the Broncos wide receivers, really? And like, so nobody really went down. We gained some really valuable information. Like you said, Cooper Kupp is not healthy at the end. Kyron Williams and Puka are real. We learned that late. We learned a handful of other things late, right? Like we somewhat knew, but like Sam Laporta, like as the summer went on, it was just like, no, he's going to play every snap. Like he is
him and Luke Musgrave. Like I nailed the rookie tight ends this year, and it's like
we learned about those guys though, right? Like at the beginning of the summer, we were excited about them and we thought, okay, they probably could play a big role. But like by July, August, you were like, no, like Sam Laporta is like the man, like the absolute man.
But it also, like, at the same time, I thought, I was hard off Quentin Johnson off of like watching his tape. I thought like he's absolute trash. Then he got drafted by the Chargers. So like then I got a little bit, in my head. And then like it was like everybody showing all these highlights of his one-handed catches and he's exploding and he's getting involved in the offense. So then I went heavy on Quentin Johnson. It's like it was rough.
What do you think about that so I know, you're people appreciate this. I know you're big into player takes. I'm a bit of a player take guy myself. You're not going to catch me hearing I win with my roster construction.
I hate that shit.
We don't get into that, but like you,
lottery. Yeah,
like you, right? Like you, I'll pick some numbers. Yeah,
I'm going to pick 1 through 26 as my Powerball, and then I'm going to diversify my. Like, what are you doing here? Like, you're playing the fucking lottery. Let's make some stands, man.
Yeah, exactly. So, you being a little bit more similar to me, that I have some firm take. One thing I'll say, I don't have like firm takes about every player. I think the thing that people misconstrue about like the player take thing is like I probably have a natural opinion about every player, but not so much a natural opinion that like drives me to take a big stand or a big fade on every single player, right? I have plenty of guys I have 5 to 10% of because I'm just like, whatever, like,
Yeah, I don't pick 5 or 6 guys I want to have a big stand on every year. Like that's my idea.
And more importantly, I want to have an X amount of stands. Like, so, and a lot of the times it's not even just player take, right? So it can be player take adjacent. Yeah. The Commanders I think the Commanders are undervalued. I think Sam Howell's undervalued. So because Sam Howell's super undervalued, Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, Curtis Samuel, B-Rob, Gibson.
Right at my
they're all right. The whole thing was they're all undervalued because the whole offense and Sam Howell's undervalued. So that was it leads you to a big stand on all those guys. But it's like, I mean, Terry McLaurin, I think is good
on the same trajectory as you. I was on the Packers on that same route because
they're all. It's just the whole thing's undervalued. It's like, I mean, I like Romeo Doubs fine. I like Jaden Reed's clearly very good. I liked Jaden Reed fine, but I wasn't like coming in like pounding like I'm not recording a video like you have to draft Jaden Reed or whatever. It was like
I don't want anybody else to be drafted. I just wanted to do it myself. You know what I mean?
Right? But you can have like I think that's the thing that gets lost in the player take stuff is it's not always just like I know better about this one individual player. It's nuanced,
right? Yeah,
but
you want to take
when you have
a chance on an unknown.
Exactly, when you have a take like QJ, which I agreed, I watched lots of QJ in college. I watched lots of TCU games, like I'm sure a lot of people did. And it's not, it wasn't a novel idea that we had. There was a lot of people with concerns about him. The same thing that we're seeing play out in the NFL was the same concerns everybody had, right? Mm-hmm. He's really just a yak guy. He can't do anything down the field. He doesn't really run particularly good routes, right? Not good. He's big, but he doesn't play big. It's like Tank Dell's 5'7", 170 pounds, and he plays bigger than Quentin Johnston does. Those were the concerns. And so we had that player take, like, God, I just don't like this guy.
Yeah.
But when do you set that aside, ignoring your Chargers love? Right. But like when do you set that aside and say, I could be wrong about this guy, even though I really firmly believe that he's not a very good player?
And that's how I felt like going into him. Like I could easily they're showing everything that they're showing, like that he's going to be one of our top 2 talents, like on our team. It's like JSN with me this year. I'm like, I know he's good. Now the team doesn't think he's good or something or along those lines, but like, I know he's good.
Yep.
Please let him play.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It also just hasn't really worked out with JSN. I think
it still could be starting today. That's when
it's not over. Yeah.
ASP,
it's not over.
Pop off until the very end. So like it can literally happen tonight. Like it can
exactly. And it just because like it's one of those things where that's another crazy part about this game is I believe pretty passionately that JSN has proven he's good. I think if you watch a game, like even if you listen to the announcers, look, I'm not saying to listen to them like about all football takes, right? Don't listen to Troy. Don't listen to Troy Aikman, right? Don't listen to these guys. But when you hear them, what they will tell you is some of these guys who are clearly popping off the screen, these football bros will be like, okay, this dude looks for real. They're like and so when everybody is saying that and when everybody is thinking that, it's not just you're not just like attached to that JSN take, like, oh, I believed he was good, right? Oh, with Sky Moore, I think it was a misevaluation. I wasn't heavy on Sky actually personally, but you know what I mean? The process behind drafting Sky, even the people you talk to that liked him will say, I think that was probably a whiff.
I'll probably have to go back to like how I feel about that with Quentin Johnston again. Like instead of like I don't know. That's the tough part. It's like, do I take what I see from like gathering information? How do I process that information versus knowing he's a good talent versus I don't think he's a good talent, but it seems to be like he's going to get the production.
Yeah,
that's the
right
tough
because
decision.
we're wrong all the time.
And that's when you go 8% on somebody. I think that's when you do because you don't want to go over on that.
I think that's the right answer. Is
you don't want to full fade, but you don't want to go over. That's a tough person.
Don't be so arrogant with right. So like the difference is people will right. So like I full faded like Zeke. Right. And I know you like Najee,
but I full faded a lot of people.
Some guys who it's like not in their range of outcomes that that they have a really high ceiling. They could like not suck, but it's not in their range of outcomes to be a stone cold smash. And we don't have to agree, chat. I know Zeke had a good game 2 weeks ago. I'm not trying to name any specific players, but your process is like, I go in and I say, this guy like can't beat me if I don't draft him. Right. Yeah. And so I throw that guy aside. I'm not drafting him because I want to dedicate more of my resources to the guys who can win me a best ball tournament. I don't believe that QJ was that level of talent, but it's also important to me in my process to not be so arrogant that I know for sure that this rookie who we've never seen play an NFL snap, that the market thinks is a 7th round pick or 8th round pick or whatever, plays with Justin Herbert. Like, there's reason to believe, even if he's not that good, that he could have some good games, right? And so that's the kind of guy where it's like, I firmly believe in my take about him, but I'm not going to be so cocky to say I'm going to full fade, right? Get your 5, 6, 7, 8% of that guy and just move along. And though that's where when people talk about like smoothing out exposures, that's when I want to do it. I don't want to do it like I'm just going to draft Juju because I have 0% Juju. Like, I don't fucking want any Juju. Like, I zero. You know what I mean?
Right. And I completely understand people fading Najee.
God, I don't want to. Let's not do that yet. We got a lot of time to talk about 10th round Najee.
Look, I'm already looking to next season. It's not been a great best ball season.
Yeah, well, depending on how this game goes, we'll and depending my whole I kept calling Rams Commanders my Super Bowl this weekend. Well, because it was basically Howell and Co against Kyron and Puka, and that didn't. It was fine. It didn't go amazing, of course. Shout out Sam Howell for scoring 9 fantasy points and Jacoby Brissett outscoring him in a quarter. But this Thursday, we're just gonna run that back. Like this Thursday, I don't really have Saints, at least not on advancing teams. I did draft a bunch of Olave, but I need Kyron to buddy, we need 3 games. Kyron, I love you. You're from St. Louis. We appreciate you. I need 3 games, and that's I don't care what you do for the rest of your career. Give me 3 straight good games here, so Thursday we'll be running it back. This is objectively hilarious. Light of Truth says we're 30 minutes
is he
from.
playing or is he not playing? Because I thought you guys said he was
he's
playing earlier.
He's active. They have not officially named a starter, so I'm guessing we'll just find out when they go out on the field. When they go out on the field the first time. Yeah, shout out to anybody playing Showdown tonight because good luck with that one. Just some comments I want to come back to here. Oh, not we don't want to talk about QJ anymore. But also Latitude says worst injury year I can remember in my time watching football, especially for QBs. A little bit of a cliche that we say these kinds of things every single year, but I don't know how you feel. I definitely believe that this was worse, and it was worse in the quarterbacks for sure, and just the trickle down of everything quarterbacks. And then we get to week 15. I felt it more in week 15, even more so, right? So I drafted a ton of Dobbins, Damian Harris got hurt, etc. Mark Andrews got hurt, but then you get to week 15 and it's well, Tyreek's out, Olave's out, Keenan's out, Brian Robinson's out, et cetera, and it's it never stopped. The injuries and guys missing important games just never stopped.
It was absolutely wild. The QB position was wild. I feel like I hit the worst luck on wide receiver injuries with Tank Dell, Cooper Kupp, and Christian Watson. And it's man, I was just hurting through the wide receiver section because I only drafted 7 because I was doing a 3-5-7-3 for most of my DK builds, and thankfully, the 3 quarterbacks was helpful. The 3 tight ends was actually not bad because I was taking McBride at the very end, or Hunter Henry, who had a couple spike weeks, and it's and I have a bunch of Hawks. So my tight ends were good, my quarterbacks were good, running backs kind of sucked, and wide receivers are okay. So it's that's why structure didn't matter regardless, So
yeah, and Josh, I feel this. I feel like a lot of people feel it. So. This is another one of those things that I was kind of talking about at the jump is it's okay.
Everybody's going through it.
Bring the tilt and bring the stress and all that. Cause this is how we're all feeling. There's a handful of people out there just sun running, and that's how it goes. That's what I was talking about again before, hope to run hot is set yourself up so that when you do run hot, you're in a really good situation. If you're running hot, especially on injuries this year, this would be the time where I would feel if I don't hit something fairly big, I would be pretty upset, because everyone else is just getting hit every week. And there's even in these playoff weeks, there's going to be dead teams in all these playoff pods that you're in. And it's if I'm sun running on all my most popular guys being healthy, and maybe emerging here down the stretch, I would really want to capitalize on that. So everybody is feeling what Josh is feeling.
For instance, had Geno Smith and Jalen Hurts not played today, that would have been insane. Go into the end of the season for that just to happen.
Yeah, that I do feel this season, every season is chaos. We'll talk again. We got all summer and winter and everything to talk through, all that kind of stuff. Every season is full chaos, and that's part of the point. We spend the whole summer acting like we know all the answers, and then we get here to this end, and you're just what the fuck just happened?
The team that I won with 3 different quarterbacks through each playoff game. I won with 0 tight end through the playoffs until the finale, because Gronk was my only tight end because I had Robert Tonyan, who was out the entire season. So I was like,
Yeah.
so I'm like, you don't. Nobody knows what's going to happen. You don't know what pod luck you're going to have. You just got to hope for you get like the worst pod luck, and your team doesn't score anything throughout the playoffs, and you just get lucky that last week.
Yeah. Before we start to get out of here, so that everybody can go, we can all, I don't know what I need to do to get some nervous energy out before the game. Everybody can go enjoy the game. What do you think is something that you've kind of just like, learned about this season? Something that like, I wish I would have done that, or I did do that well, or whatever, that looking forward to these next couple of weeks. You're like, I think this is, so like Corrine and I talked about, it was a little bit more player focused, but it was like, I felt it was like, give me like something with Kyron, and he mentioned like HN and stuff, and which kind of led me into like, I really think, I know Christian McCaffrey's going nuts, but if you can sneak through without Christian McCaffrey and you get some of these superstar wide receivers with these late round running backs that are in really good situations right now, is something that I've been thinking.
I'm like super excited about. Yeah.
Right. Like if you have, like, I know CMC is awesome and that we all would love to see CMC on our teams, but if you have Kyron and Ty Chandler and Devin Singletary and whatever, Jalen Warren, you have those, Achan, definitely Mostert, right? If you have those guys on your teams, like I would rather have that and fade a chalky CMC and like even give me Amon-Ra CD or whatever. That's a pretty chalky pairing, but like I would rather have that. And so it's just something I've been continually thinking about is like CMC is absolutely smashing. Right. Yeah. Absolutely smashing. And I still see all these running backs later and the 2v2, the combinations of players I can get. And I'm like, I still think I want the late running backs and not Christian McCaffrey. And I know that's crazy. People will call you crazy for that. But like when I factor in the ownership of CMC and what the late round running backs represent, especially relative, right? Maybe if Tank Dell was healthy, maybe if some of those things were different, I would feel differently. But man, it just feels so much like, dude, give me those late running backs and the superstar wide receivers, and I'll just like take my chances with the superstar wide receivers for these next 2 weeks.
Yeah, that would be amazing. I think something I want to do more next year is like take some more team onslaughts and just like and build around those teams for like the playoffs.
So like quarterback, running back, 2 wide receivers and a tight end.
And a tight end, and just stop at 5, and hopefully they just bounce off one another. Like,
I mean, if you have the 49ers,
the
49ers, you're probably getting 2 good scores every single week, like literally.
And it wouldn't be that hard to build either. Like that wasn't hard to get.
And the funny thing about the 49ers one, I'm so glad you brought that up because it's so interesting. The whole premise of some of those teams, like the 49ers, you'll hear over the summer is they can't all pay off their prices. Right. That'll be the thing is like, because they are all expensive. Yeah. Debo's in the 3rd round. Christian McCaffrey's in the top 3 or whatever. Kittle's in the 5th. Yeah. Right. I know Purdy was cheap, but
the year I won it, I did it with a Tampa Bay stack. And then like, they were like one of the best teams. And it's like, well, why?
Yeah. Brady, Evans, Godwin, Lenny, Gronk, right. Just draft them all. And like, you naturally end up getting one of them is lower owned. Late, if you happen, if they smash, you have a good season. If they smash throughout the playoffs, you're going to be moving on for sure. And they can't all be chalk in the finals. So you're naturally going to get, is it Evans, is it Godwin, whatever, who knows? But like, you're going to get something to the finals that you're looking and you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like I got a 2% Chris Godwin in the finals. Like, yes, sign me up for that.
Yeah. I had a 3% owned Tom Brady with a very low owned Gronk, and they smashed that week.
All right, before we get out of here, hot take about the game tonight. What happens? Who has the big fantasy games? What's propelling people? Or not, if they need something that doesn't get there, or something that's helping them move on to Week 16 in tonight's game.
DeAndre Swift, 150 yards.
Oh God TDs, damn it! Why did I invite you on here?
And a JSN. 50-yard bomb somewhere in there.
All right, now we're back. JSN 50-yard bomb. I appreciate that. I'm rooting for JSN. I'm not going to make that my call, but I really do believe this is a DK Metcalf spot. If you have DK Metcalf teams, I mean,
just not Tyler Lockett. Just not
Eagles.
Tyler
Yes, no Lockett. Just no Lockett.
No
so
Lockett.
it's gonna be Lockett now.
Yeah,
but
it's 100%
no.
Lockett.
No Darius Slay for an already terrible pass defense. Seattle's not going to be able to run against their front seven, whether or not it's Geno or Julaka. Who knows? We'll find out here in 20 minutes. But I really do believe that we're going to get a pretty big DK Metcalf game here tonight. So we'll be back tomorrow. We'll see. Rob has a power outage. The winds out there on the East Coast are absolutely insane. Hop in the Discord. He was posting some pictures of what's going on out there. It is wild. So we'll see if we can get Rob back. If not, maybe we'll bring Felix back. Maybe we'll bring some guests on. But we'll be back tomorrow talking through all the actual carnage for here from week 15 teams we got through. You guys can share some of your fun teams that you got through, and we'll start the sweat into week 16 and see if we can, eke through one more really, really tough week in week 16, but see if we can get through and get some teams into the best ball finals for myself and for Felix. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Woo! Those were some spicy takes. Want to stay up to date with all of the other spicy takes we're going to have over here at Spike Week? Why don't you press that subscribe button below? You turn notifications on, we draft a team, boom, you know about it. We have another spicy take, boom, you know about it. You can be there, you can draft with us. You want to stay up to date? That's how you do it. All right, we'll catch you later next time here at Spike Week.